Welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to dive in.
Today we're tackling something a listener specifically requested.
Yeah.
Stability testing for pharmaceuticals. We've got their notes right here, articles, the whole shebang. And
Wow, they went all out.
they did. It seems like they're really trying to wrap their head around those, FDA guidelines.
The FDA guidelines.
Which, let's be honest, have a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a maze to navigate.
I wouldn't say a maze necessarily. I think they can be intricate for sure.
Intricate, yeah.
But a lot of that, the complexity boils down to the fact that they're really designed to ensure, above all else, that medications are staying safe.
Safe, right.
And effective for patients.
For the patients, that's the bottom line.
No matter what form they come in.
Right.
Pills, injections, creams, you name it.
Or how long they've been sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the why, protecting patients.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of the articles that our listener sent in actually quotes someone as saying that the FDA guidelines are practically a mystery to some folks in the industry.
A mystery.
A mystery.
Mm.
Why is that? What makes them so tricky to navigate?
Well, I think there's not like a single easy answer to that.
Right.
But if you think about it,
Yeah.
you've got pills, you've got injections, creams.
Right.
And who knows what they're going to come up with next.
Yeah, who knows what the future holds?
Exactly. And each type of drug
Right.
has its own sort of, quirks when it comes to how it might break down over time.
Okay.
So the guidelines, they can't be too rigid, right?
Right.
They need to be flexible enough to adapt to all those variations.
Makes sense.
And of course, to any new discoveries that are made.
Scientific discoveries that come.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a really good point. But then how does anyone actually figure out, what needs to be tested for their specific drug?
Right.
It feels like you'd need a PhD just to, decode all the requirements.
You don't need a PhD.
Okay, good.
But it definitely helps to have, a solid understanding of the core purpose of what stability testing is.
Yeah.
What we're really trying to do with stability testing is predict how a drug is going to behave in the real world.
Out in the wild.
Out in the wild, exactly.
Okay.
How it's affected by things like temperature changes, humidity, even exposure to light.
Light, wow.
All of that can impact its quality. And effectiveness over time.
Okay.
It's not quite as simple as you might think.
So stability testing is like a crystal ball, but for medication.
Oh, I like that.
You're kind of peering into the future to see how the drug's going to hold up.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Over time.
And the results of these tests are really what help determine
Right.
all those crucial details that you see on labels.
On labels, right.
Things like the drug's expiration date. And how it should be stored.
Storage, yeah.
All really important.
All super important stuff. All right, so we know why stability testing is so important.
Right.
But let's get into the how.
The how, okay.
What kinds of tests are we actually talking about here?
Well, a lot of the testing actually revolves around guidelines that are put out by the International Council for Harmonization.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
The ICH, right?
ICH, that's right. Much easier.
Okay, so.
Now, these guidelines, they're not technically laws.
Okay.
But they might as well be.
Okay.
They're really considered to be the industry gold standard.
The gold standard.
And they're used by regulatory agencies worldwide.
Worldwide.
Including our own FDA.
Yeah, the ICH guidelines came up a lot in the research you sent.
They're kind of a big deal.
They seem like the Bible of stability testing.
Exactly. They provide this incredibly detailed framework. Sure. So, for instance, you have ICH Q1A, which is Stability Testing 101.
Stability Testing 101.
It lays out all the general requirements for new drug substances and products. So it's covering things like how long and under what conditions those tests should be run.
So Q1A is setting the foundation.
It is. It's the foundation.
The foundation, okay.
You got it.
What else is there?
Well, then you have guidelines like Q1B.
Q1B, okay.
Which tackles a very specific issue.
Okay.
How light exposure affects a drug.
Light, okay.
Also known as photostability.
Photostability, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and some medications are surprisingly sensitive to light.
I can imagine, yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want a drug to, lose its potency just because it was sitting on a sunny windowsill, right?
Precisely.
Okay, so Q1B is all about light. What else?
So then we have Q1C.
Q1C.
For new dosage forms.
Dosage, okay.
We've got Q1D for specific testing designs.
Designs? Sure.
Q1E for evaluating the results.
Evaluating results.
Q1F for what data you need for registration application.
Registration, okay.
And even Q3C.
Get R3C.
Which is all about impurities and solvents.
Oh, wow.
That might be lurking in the drug product.
So impurities, solvents, they cover it all.
It's pretty comprehensive.
It really is.
Yeah.
There's a whole alphabet soup of guidelines.
It is an alphabet soup for sure.
But there's something I'm a little curious about.
Okay.
One of these articles mentioned that the ICH guidelines are, quote unquote, recommendations.
Right.
Not actual rules.
Not actual rules, yeah.
If that's the case, then why does everyone seem to follow them, like, religiously?
Well, because in the pharmaceutical world, these recommendations carry a lot of weight.
They do.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
If you want your drug to be approved, you're going to need to demonstrate to the FDA.
To the FDA, yeah.
That you've met the highest standards.
The highest standards, okay.
And those standards are, pretty much defined by those ICH guidelines.
So it's like technically you could deviate from them, but
you could.
But it's not exactly a risk anyone's really willing to take.
You really don't want to, no.
Okay.
The ICH guidelines, they provide this internationally recognized benchmark for quality and safety.
Quality and safety.
And it's really in everyone's best interest, the drug companies.
Yeah.
The regulators.
The regulators.
Most importantly, the patients.
The patients, of course.
To stick to them.
Okay.
To stick to the guidelines.
All right. So let's say you're a company with a brand new drug.
Okay.
Ready to embark on this whole stability testing journey.
This whole journey.
What are those first steps?
So first steps.
Like, is there a standard process that they follow?
Absolutely. There's definitely a standard process.
Right.
First things first.
Okay.
You need a rock solid.
Rock solid.
Okay.
Quality system.
Quality system, all right?
This isn't just about, running tests.
Right.
It's about having all of your processes documented.
Documented, okay.
Controlled.
Controlled, yeah.
And meeting those really stringent standards.
Stringent standards, those high standards.
Those high standards, exactly.
Okay.
So then
what?
You'll develop what's called a stability protocol.
Stability protocol.
Which is essentially your game plan.
Game plan, okay.
For the entire testing process.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a blueprint outlining exactly what you're going to test.
Yes.
How you're going to test it. Under what conditions.
You got it.
Oh, okay.
And here's the catch. You can't just use any old testing method.
Right.
You need methods that have been validated.
Validated.
Which means they've been proven.
Proven, okay.
To be accurate.
Accurate,
And reliable.
Reliable. And, of course, everything has to be done according to those ICH guidelines.
Those ICH guidelines, right? Because when it comes to something as important as drug safety, there's no room for, guesswork or cutting corners.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
The stakes are way too high.
The stakes are too high.
Way too high.
Okay, so you've got your quality system in place, your protocol's all mapped out.
You're ready to go.
You're ready to start testing.
Almost.
But what are we actually testing for?
Okay, so testing for...
I saw some terms in the research you sent.
Okay.
Things like physical and chemical characteristics.
Right.
Potency, purity.
Right. Those are all... those
the
are
main ones?
Those are all key areas, yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, you're going to want to track how the drug's appearance changes.
Appearance, okay.
Over time.
So, does the color fade?
Exactly.
Does it start to, crumble?
Yeah.
Even, the smell could be a clue?
Even the smell, absolutely.
Okay, so that's appearance.
That's appearance.
What about, chemical stability?
Oh, that's a big one, too.
Okay.
So is the drug, breaking down?
Breaking down, okay.
Into other compounds.
Other compounds, yeah.
Things like that.
Okay, and perhaps most importantly, potency.
Oh, potency's huge.
Potency, yeah, that's making sure the drug actually does what it's supposed to do, right?
You got it.
Okay.
You need to be certain that the drug is maintaining its effectiveness. Throughout its entire shelf life.
So after it's been sitting in the warehouse, on the pharmacy shelf, whatever.
Exactly.
Because what good is a pain reliever if it stops working after a few months?
You're exactly right.
So you're not just checking to see if the drug goes bad.
Right.
You're analyzing exactly how it goes bad.
That's a great way to put it.
So we're getting into the nitty-gritty here.
The nitty-gritty, yep.
And on top of all of that, there are tests for purity.
Oh, right. Purity.
Which means...
So that's hunting down.
Hunting down, okay.
Any impurities or contaminants?
Contaminants.
That might have crept in over time.
Crept in, wow.
And then for things like liquid medications.
Liquids, yeah.
You also need to make sure that there's no bacterial growth.
Oh, bacterial growth, of course.
It's a whole other ballgame.
Wow. It's way more involved than I ever imagined.
It's a lot.
It is.
But it's all very important.
It is. It is. Can you give me like a concrete example of how one of these tests might work?
Okay, concrete example.
Something our listener can really picture.
All right, well, let's take potency testing.
Potency, okay.
So imagine you've got a medication that's supposed to contain, let's say, 500 milligrams.
Yeah, 500 milligrams, okay.
Of the active ingredient.
Of the active ingredient.
Potency testing involves, analyzing samples of that drug at regular intervals.
Regular intervals.
Maybe every few months.
Every few months, okay.
To make absolutely sure that it still has those 500 milligrams.
500 milligrams.
Even after it's been sitting in a warehouse.
Right. Out in the world.
On a pharmacy shelf.
Pharmacy shelf.
Wherever.
So it's like a quality control check.
Yes.
To make sure that the label is still telling the truth.
Exactly.
Even after time has passed.
Because if that drug degrades over time, and those 500 milligrams dwindle down to, let's say, 400?
400, okay.
It might not be effective anymore.
Yeah, it might not be doing its job.
And that's a risk we just can't take.
We can't take that risk. That's a really clear example, thanks.
No problem.
So all of these tests together really paint a complete picture of how stable a drug is over time.
They do.
Now, I know we've just scratched the surface here.
Just the beginning.
There's so much more to unpack about stability testing, right?
There's a lot more.
But for now, let's take a pause.
A pause, all right.
And we'll come back in part 2.
Part 2, okay.
To explore some of those fascinating details you found in your research.
Sounds good. I'm ready for part 2.
All right, we're back. Ready to dive even deeper.
Deeper.
Into this world of stability testing.
Love it.
We were just talking about all those different tests involved, right?
Right.
The potency, the purity, all that good stuff.
All of good stuff.
But something I'm wondering about is, how long does all this testing actually take?
That's a great question.
It can't be a quick process, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It is definitely not a quick process. In fact, the time frame for these studies is a big part of why planning them meticulously is so crucial.
So important, yeah.
And remember those ICH guidelines we were discussing earlier?
Yeah, ICH guidelines, yeah.
Well, they actually recommend specific time frames.
Time frames. That's
for stability testing depending on the drug.
Okay.
And how it's going to be stored.
So even the timeline is kind of standardized.
To a large degree, yeah.
To a large degree, wow.
For example, there's something called accelerated stability testing.
Accelerated, okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of like putting the drug through a time machine.
A time machine, okay.
So they use higher temperatures.
Higher temperatures, okay.
And humidity.
Humidity, okay.
To simulate aging more quickly.
Simulate aging, so it's like we're fast forwarding.
Fast forwarding, exactly.
We're speeding up that degradation process.
Exactly. And that gives researchers, kind of a sneak peek.
A sneak peek, okay.
Into how stable the drug is likely to be down the line.
So you get to see those potential problems early on.
You got it.
Okay, so that's accelerated stability testing.
That's accelerated.
Then what?
Then comes the long-term stability testing.
The long-term.
Which is done under, the actual conditions.
The actual conditions, okay.
The drug is expected to be stored in.
So normal room temperature.
Normal room temperature.
Typical humidity levels.
Exactly.
So this is seeing how it behaves in the real world.
The real world.
Not just in some, superheated lab setting.
Right, because you want to see...
Yeah, how it behaves in those real-world conditions.
But this long-term testing, how long are we talking?
Well, it really depends.
Depends
on the intended shelf life of the drug.
The shelf life, okay.
They need to test it. For that entire duration, plus a little extra, just to be on the safe side.
To be extra sure, yeah.
So if a drug has a shelf life of 2 years.
2 years, okay.
The testing might go on.
Go on for how long?
For 3 or even 4 years.
Wow, that's a serious commitment of time and resources.
It is.
But I guess it makes sense when you think about the potential consequences.
Right.
Of releasing a drug that turns out to be unstable.
Unstable, yeah.
Down the line.
Exactly. It all comes back to patient safety.
Patient safety.
And making sure that the medication is going to be effective for as long as it's supposed to be.
Okay, speaking of ensuring quality, one of the articles you sent really emphasized the importance of having
a strong quality system in place.
Quality system.
For all of this. Why is that so crucial for stability testing?
Well, because stability testing isn't just about, running a bunch of tests in a lab and calling it a day.
Yeah.
It's about having this incredibly detailed system.
Detailed system, okay.
That covers
every single step.
Every single step, wow.
Of the process.
So from how those samples are collected, stored, to how the data is analyzed and reported.
You got it.
So it's like a chain. Every single link needs to be strong.
I like that.
To ensure the integrity of the whole thing.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
A robust quality system ensures that everyone involved in stability testing is properly trained. Meticulous. Okay.
And accurate.
Accurate, yeah.
Because, let's be honest, when you're dealing with, medications that people rely on, even a small error could have major consequences.
Right. You can't be messing around with this stuff. It sounds incredibly detail-oriented.
That is.
And meticulous.
Very much so.
I imagine there's very little room for error in this field.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Stability testing is high stakes.
High stakes.
Inaccurate data or sloppy procedures could potentially lead to, a drug being released that's not actually stable.
That's not stable, right.
And that's a risk no one wants to take.
No one wants to take that risk.
No.
And I'm sure the FDA is watching all of this very closely.
Oh, they are.
What happens if a company doesn't meet those stability testing requirements?
That's a good question.
What are the consequences?
Well, the consequences can be pretty significant. At the very least, the FDA could delay. Or even completely deny approval.
Deny approval, wow.
Of a new drug application.
New drug application, so they could just shut it down right there.
They could.
Wow.
They could also issue warning letters.
Warning letters, okay.
Or even force a company to recall a drug.
Recall a drug, wow.
That's already on the market.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of pressure to get it right.
There is.
Stability testing is clearly not something to be taken lightly.
Absolutely not. It's a critical part.
Okay.
Of the drug development process.
Right.
And a key factor.
Okay.
In ensuring, patient safety.
Patient safety, yeah.
And drug quality. It all goes back to those two things.
All this talk about testing and regulations makes me wonder about the people behind it all.
The people, yeah.
Are there, people who specialize in this?
Oh, absolutely.
Is this a whole career path?
Absolutely.
So there are people out there whose job it is to just do this stability testing.
There are entire teams of scientists.
Scientists, wow.
Technicians, quality assurance specialists.
Quality assurance, yeah.
Who focus specifically on this.
Wow.
You could say they're kind of the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Of the pharmaceutical industry,
Yeah.
Working diligently behind the scenes.
Yeah.
To make sure
that
the medications we rely on are safe and effective.
That's really interesting.
It is.
So what kind of skills and knowledge would you need to work in this field?
That's a good question.
I imagine it requires a very particular set of expertise.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, a strong background in science.
Okay.
Is definitely a must.
Makes sense.
Particularly in, chemistry. And analytical techniques.
So very lab focused.
Wow. But you also need, a deep understanding. Of all those regulatory guidelines.
The guidelines, right.
Yeah. And quality systems.
The quality systems, yeah.
That we've been talking about.
So it's a blend of, scientific expertise.
Yes.
And that, regulatory know-how.
Exactly.
That's quite a combination.
It is.
And it's not just technical skills either, right?
No, it's not.
You also need to have meticulous attention to detail. Strong organizational skills.
Yes.
And the ability to work both independently and as part of a team.
Very important.
It sounds like a challenging.
It is challenging.
But ultimately rewarding career path, right?
It is.
You're playing a very direct role in protecting public health.
Exactly. And it's a constantly evolving field.
Right.
Especially with all the new drug formulations and technologies that are emerging.
So it's the kind of career that keeps you on your toes.
Always learning.
I'm sure our listener, who's obviously very interested in this topic, is taking notes as we speak.
I hope so.
Is there anything else about the people? Behind stability testing that you think is important for them to know?
Well, I think it's important to emphasize that stability testing is very much a collaborative effort.
Collaborative.
It's not just, scientists working in isolation.
Right.
They work very closely
with
other departments like research and development.
Research and development, okay.
Manufacturing.
And
quality assurance.
Quality assurance, right.
To make sure that every aspect.
Okay.
Of drug development.
Drug development, yeah.
Is aligned with
those stability requirements.
You got it.
So it's a team effort from start to finish.
A team effort, absolutely.
And it's a team that's driven by a shared commitment.
Shared commitment, right.
To patient safety.
Patient safety.
And drug quality.
Drug quality.
That's really inspiring to hear.
It is.
It's amazing to think about the, intricate web of people and processes that go into ensuring that the medications we take are safe and effective. But you know what? We've covered a lot of ground already.
A lot of ground.
Maybe it's time to shift gears a bit.
Shift gears.
And explore some of the, challenges. And perhaps even controversies. Surrounding stability testing.
That sounds good.
It can't all be smooth sailing.
That's a great idea. I think our listener will find this next part particularly interesting.
All right. So we've established that stability testing is, it's complex.
It is, yeah.
It's this multifaceted process that's absolutely crucial.
Crucial, yeah.
For patient safety.
We've talked about all the different tests.
Right.
The strict guidelines, the teams of scientists.
All those folks working behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
But, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Are there any, challenges?
Challenges, yeah.
Or even, controversies?
Controversies. Interesting.
Surrounding stability testing.
Yeah.
It can't all be smooth sailing.
You're right. It definitely isn't all smooth sailing.
Okay, so what are some of the bumps in the road?
Well, I'd say one of the biggest bumps is simply keeping up.
Keeping up with
the, the ever-evolving landscape
of
drug development.
Drug development is constantly changing, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about all the new technologies emerging.
Okay.
Things like personalized medicine.
Personalized medicine, right.
And complex biologics.
Biologics.
They're really pushing
yeah.
those traditional stability testing methods to their limits.
So these cutting-edge drugs are actually creating new hurdles.
They are.
For stability testing.
Exactly.
So how so? How are they creating those hurdles?
Well, take personalized medicines, for instance.
Okay. Personalized medicine.
They're tailored to, individual patients.
Individual patients, so very specific.
Which means you've got smaller batches. And, unique formulations.
Okay.
And that makes it a lot harder to conduct.
Those
large-scale stability studies that we were talking about earlier.
Right, because of everything's so individualized.
Right, exactly.
It's hard to have those big, sweeping studies.
I can't really generalize as easily.
Okay, so that's personalized medicine.
And then you have biologics.
Which
are derived from, living organisms.
Living organisms, yeah.
So they're inherently
more complex.
More complex, okay.
And sensitive
to degradation than those traditional, small molecule drugs.
So they're just more delicate in a way.
They are.
They break down easier.
It sounds like the scientists in this field are constantly having to adapt and innovate.
Yeah.
Just to keep up.
Yeah, they got to stay on top of things.
They do. So that kind of brings me to your next question.
Okay.
What does the future hold?
The future, yeah.
For stability testing.
What's coming down the pike?
Oh.
Are there any exciting developments on the horizon?
Oh, absolutely. There's always something new.
Okay, like what?
Well, one area that's generating a lot of buzz.
All right.
Is the use of predictive modeling.
Okay, so what's that?
So this involves using, sophisticated computer algorithms. To try to predict how a drug will behave over time.
So they're taking all this data.
Yes.
And they're trying to predict the future.
Predicting the future, exactly.
Yeah.
Based on the drug's, chemical properties.
Chemical properties, yeah.
And the environmental factors it might be exposed to.
So it's kind of like forecasting the weather, but for drug stability.
That's a great analogy.
So we're seeing if it'll be sunny skies or stormy weather for that particular drug.
Exactly. And if these models prove to be accurate, they could really dramatically reduce the time and cost of stability testing.
Wow, that would be huge.
It would be huge, yeah. Instead of waiting, years to see how a drug degrades in real time, we could potentially have those reliable predictions much earlier in the process.
That would be a game changer for the industry.
A game changer, absolutely.
Okay, so that's predictive modeling. Any other innovations we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, there's also growing interest.
Growing interesting.
In real-time stability monitoring.
Real-time, okay.
So this involves, using sensors to track a drug's stability throughout its entire life cycle.
The entire life cycle, wow, from start to finish.
From the moment it's manufactured.
Manufactured, okay.
To its storage.
Storage.
And even, during distribution.
So it's like we're constantly getting feedback.
Constantly getting feedback, exactly.
On how that drug's holding up.
Exactly. So it's all about moving towards like a more proactive and data-driven approach.
Just data-driven. Okay.
To stability testing.
Imagine being able to detect potential stability issues before they even have a chance to impact patients.
That's the dream.
That is the dream. That's amazing. This is all incredibly exciting stuff.
It is.
But for our listener, who's right now trying to navigate those FDA guidelines and figure out their own stability testing strategy.
Their own strategy.
What are the key takeaways?
Key takeaways, all right.
What's the most important thing for them to keep in mind?
Well, I'd say the most important thing is to approach stability testing with a
meticulous
and proactive mindset.
Proactive, so we're not waiting for things to go wrong.
Exactly.
Okay.
Don't wait for problems to arise before you take action.
Yeah, get ahead of the game.
Invest in robust quality systems.
Robust quality systems, okay.
Stay up to date on the latest guidelines and technologies.
All the new stuff that's coming out.
And most importantly, always prioritize patient safety.
Patient safety.
And drug quality.
Drug quality.
Above all else.
Above all else. That's the bottom line.
That is the bottom line.
That's excellent advice. And remember, the world of stability testing is, as you said, constantly evolving.
It is.
So, stay curious.
Serious, yes.
Keep learning.
Keep learning.
And don't be afraid to, reach out to experts for guidance.
Never be afraid to ask questions.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive. I mean, we've uncovered so much about the complexities, the challenges, and that exciting future of stability testing.
It has been a pleasure diving into this topic with you.
I know I've learned a ton.
Me too.
And I hope you have too.
I'm sure our listener has.
I hope so.
And remember, while those FDA guidelines might seem daunting at first, they're ultimately in place to make sure the medications we rely on are safe and effective.
Safe and effective. That's what it's all about.
That's it.
A big thanks to our listener for sending in their research and prompting us to take this deep dive.
Big thanks to the listener.
We hope you found it insightful and helpful. And as always, if any other questions come up, don't hesitate to reach out.
We're always here to help.
We're always here to help you navigate this fascinating world of pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those important questions.
See you next time.